All right, time now for everyone's favorite segment of the week. It is time.
It's time for a good old-fashioned Q&A.
I wonder what the
MMA
questions will be about this week. Always a nice surprise.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived to hear from the man himself.
That is
Ariel
me.
Helwani.
Yes.
Live from the Box Studios in beautiful New York City, it's On the Nose. And now, to answer your questions, get out of your seats and on your feet because
come on.
Here he is, Ariel Helwani.
The real reason, by the way, that Shogun isn't on is because he didn't like the amount of money that we were offering for our guests. So he's like, I could get a better deal somewhere. Just kidding. No money being exchanged. Hey, yeah. All right. Moderator Lewis, hard at work as always, picking the best questions that you sent to us over at arielhelwani.substack.com. Appreciate all the questions. I saw that there were a lot. Never look at them before. Want to be fresh. Want to be surprised. Can't wait to see what you have in store for us. Without further ado, let us get to it. Andrew G is up first. Hey, Ariel. We keep seeing example after example of the UFC trying to devalue their stars as they leave the promotion. Has this ever actually worked? Is another promotion really going to offer less based off of how they competed and are talked about in their last fight? Especially stars like Nate and or Francis, or are the expectations that this actually works for lower tier UFC fighters? Okay, well, here's the thing. The practice of devaluing them, disparaging them on the way out isn't necessarily to, get them a lesser deal or to put them in a bad spot financially to whomever they may sign with. It's to send the message out to the UFC public, the UFC audience, that, hey, this guy isn't here because of X, Y, and Z. That's first and foremost in their mind. Like, they ultimately don't really care if Bellator pays them 3 times or PFL or anyone. It's to let you know, hey, the reason why this guy isn't here is because he wants easy fights. He doesn't want to fight this guy. He wants to take the easy route. He's comfortable, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of people on Twitter that put out this screen grab of all the news stories where Dana White says, this guy, that guy, this guy doesn't want to fight. When in reality, it has to do with so much more. It's either a bad contract or, a more complicated situation like Francis. It is never this guy doesn't want this fight because he is afraid, or this woman doesn't want this fight because she is afraid. It is never that. Is it sometimes, hey, this fight doesn't make sense for me because it is more beneficial for you, for me to take it, rather than me taking it to advance my career? Yeah, it's sometimes that, right? Like if there's a killer out there like Khamzat who is ranked 30th coming into the UFC and I'm ranked 3rd, yeah, why am I going to take this fight? By the way, kudos to Leon Edwards. He took the fight multiple times. But the narrative that they try to put out that this guy is more often than not, 99.99999% of the time, BS. And it's to tell you, the UFC audience, that the reason why this guy's here is because he doesn't want to be among the best. He doesn't want to fight the best. It's not necessarily to get him a bad deal. If any promoter out there is stupid enough to listen to that and say, hey, I heard what they said about you. I'm now going to offer you, 1/4 of what we just offered you or wanted to offer you or a half or whatever. I mean, that person is adult and, the real world doesn't work that way. They're smart. If we're smart enough to decipher what's going on, they're smart enough to decipher what is going on. So it's really just to explain their own actions and to never just say, as I've said before, hey, gave it our best shot, took us a year, went back and forth, thought we got close. In the end, he wanted something that we couldn't offer him. We wish him the best. Maybe we'll revisit this. No harm, no foul. We've got a great heavyweight fight. And we thank him for all his great fights and all his great years here. That's the normal person way of doing business. That's the normal person way of addressing these things. And it's quite often what we see in sports. It's not how they do business. Their way of doing business is hurting you on the way out. Their way of doing business is, and I don't even want to say they, Dana White's way of business. It's really just one guy. I don't believe that everyone in the company feels like this is the best way to do it. And by the way, Hunter and Francis, as he said, Mick and Francis, as he said, have a great relationship. I don't think that they want that for Francis. You can still not be in business with someone and have a good relationship with them, right? It just sometimes doesn't work. You want something, they can't offer it. Can't meet in the middle. That's the normal way of doing things. And I will say this, for some crazy reason, More often than not, when someone tests the UFC and goes out there and gets another deal, for some reason they tend to stumble. That's why I'm really curious to see what happens. Historically, you look at all the great examples of guys leaving for greener pastures. For some reason, there haven't been that many that have left and have thrived. Maybe they've thrived financially, but wins and losses wise, it's been a lot more losses than wins. I don't know if they put a hex on you. I don't know if they put a curse on you. I don't know what it is, but there's example after example of this where they end up looking great. The house wins. That's why the Nate and Francis thing is so unique, because usually they end up looking great even before you get out. They put you in a tough fight. You end up stumbling. Your value goes down. You lose your leverage. They wanted to do that to Nate clearly against Khamzat. They were hoping that this would happen against Ciryl Gane to Francis. Didn't happen. But that's why both of these things happening at around the same time is wild, wild stuff and somewhat unprecedented. Caleb. Hey, Ariel. Just wanted to gauge your own personal opinion on how impactful this Francis situation will be in the future for fighters' rights. I think as the world sees what he was asking for as extremely reasonable. I mean, it is reasonable, but it's revolutionary as far as the UFC is concerned. Worth noting. Good or bad, it's just not the way their orbit runs. Could the UFC be losing some good faith with their fan base? It seems between this, Dana White's behavior, and the overuse of the Apex that the UFC is not taking advantage of the fandom that they developed during the pandemic. Overall, I want to get your personal opinion on how impactful all of this is. And if you were in charge, how would you approach some of these topics while keeping the business aspect in mind? All right, well, the first part of the question is, look, fortunately, unfortunately, Francis is just one person. And you see, like, how many UFC fighters, big name UFC fighters, do you see backing him right now? None? One, two? I don't know. I don't see any. Do you see any, GC? Like, do you see a lot of UFC fighters backing Francis Ngannou right now?
Biggest one was Sean Strickland, post-fight press conference.
Yep.
I mean, he has a close relationship with him.
Training partner, yeah. Not a lot. And shout out to Sean for that. And so that speaks volumes. One guy isn't going to be, I was thinking about this morning. Could this be the start of something? And even he said himself, he doesn't think that a union can happen. One guy isn't going to be the guy. And it has to be a guy, like there was, in baseball, the Kurt Flood situation where he wanted to test free agency. He wanted free agency to be a thing. He didn't just want to be like viewed as a piece of property that can be shipped around. And, there was an individual, Marvin Miller was his name, who was instrumental in putting together the MLB Players Union. You need someone like that as well. You need someone like that behind the scenes. That's why I was wondering back in the day, 2016, when Jeff Boris was trying to create something, if maybe he could be the guy because he really understood the way collective bargaining works. He's a former baseball agent, longtime baseball agent. And maybe he could be the guy to get the fighters to understand the finances. They're fighters. I don't even understand this stuff to a certain degree. So it's going to take more than one guy. And even you see a guy with his stature be kind of left on an island. Let's just talk about the UFC champions. How many of them are backing him? How many of the most influential fighters in the UFC are openly backing Francis right now? None. I haven't seen a single one. So, and correct me if I missed one. But so that's why I think that the UFC is very lucky that they have this shiny toy named Jon Jones, right? Everyone's going to be excited. Come March 4th, Francis will be talked about, but, it'll be about Jon Jones, and they'll push Jon Jones, and it's Jones versus Gane and blah, blah, blah. Now, if Jones wins, you have the Stipe thing, and people will be excited about that, the most decorated heavyweight champ of all time. If Jon wins that one, maybe there will be calls for Francis, but they are lucky that they have this machine that keeps going that allows you to forget about the other stuff. And the machine is so great and so successful and so big and so powerful. No one is bigger than the machine. Not even Conor is bigger than the machine. Like, the machine is still going. Now, Conor comes back, you see a massive spike and they want him back, and he's great for business, but like the business isn't tanking without him, right? It's obviously not going to reach any heights that he could bring them to, but it's still a multi-billion-dollar business. And when their TV rights are up in 3 years, it's still going to fetch a lot of money and blah, 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 blah. And it's still a valuable property for ESPN Plus and all that stuff. So he's a guy, and he's a guy who has, morals and standards and principles, and he's sticking to them. But the machine goes on. And on Saturday, we'll all be going crazy about 283. And then we'll all be going crazy about 284 and then 285 and all that stuff. Look, there's no denying, by the way, this has been a tough stretch for the UFC. Off the top of my head, the gambling situation, horrible. Let's even go back a little bit before that. The Nate Diaz situation blowing up in their face. That wasn't great. The gambling situation, not great. The Dana White situation, not great. This Francis situation, not great. Am I missing any? I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty bad stretch. In the midst of that, we've had some good shows. We've had some good fights. We've had some good moments, but it's been some negative press. These things go up and down, and I don't think any of them are truly detrimental to their future, to their business. But yeah, look, you don't want to get me started on the Apex and all that stuff. I think that they don't think that there's any sort of negative impact on the audience by putting shows there. Although we did find out yesterday that this via Adam Hill, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, that the Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan fight is going to be taking place at the Virgin Hotel, which I think used to be the Palms. It was either the Palms or the Hard Rock. So that's good. It's in Las Vegas, few thousand people. That's all we asked for. We're not asking for every show to be at T-Mobile or even MGM. Just give me a crowd. I mean, they used to hold shows there all the time. Big difference. PZ. Hi, Ariel. Can you please elaborate on how Francis's contract with the UFC ended? From what I understand, he fought the last fight on his contract in January of 2022. Then, because he was champ, there was an automatic 3-fight or 1-year extension champion clause. If so, then his contract would have seemingly expired sometime this month, January of 2023, correct? What I'm not sure of this is how long the exclusive matching rights UFC would have had after that 1-year extension. Dana said they were waiving those. I'm assuming Francis was prohibited from fielding offers during that. Okay, I don't want to read some stuff that may not be accurate. Thank you, Ariel. I appreciate your work in covering the sport, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is the thing. He had a sunset clause. The 5 years, he had a term and he had a number of fights. He exhausted the number of fights in January of 2022, but there was also a term, right? And it was 5 years. And that term ended December, I think, 9th of 2022, right? So even though he had his last fight in January of 2022, there was still 11 months left until the term ended, right? So they had 11 months to engage with him, to make a deal, et cetera, et cetera. They couldn't say, we're offering you this fight because you got a fight left on your deal, because he exhausted the fights. Okay, so there were two things. There was fights and there was term. He exhausted the fights. He still had 11 months left on the deal. So that's why they couldn't force him. They couldn't say, you must do this, you must do that. They couldn't extend him, even though he was injured. They couldn't do any of that. Once the term ended, there's another year of matching rights. Now, with the matching rights, I believe it is, all right, now we're free to go talk to people, right? The term has ended, 5 years. I go to Promoter X. Promoter X gives me a great deal, right? I come back to you. My understanding is they have 15 days to match it. So they can't sit on it for a year, but they do have that power for a year. Now, once the year is over, you can literally just go out and sign with someone that afternoon. But still, to have that power for a year is a crazy thing. Now, very strategic what they did, publicly saying we've released him, right? Number one, we're in power here. We're in charge. We are releasing him. He's not walking away. He didn't turn anything down. We are releasing him. We are walking away from him, right? Here's the thing. If he signs a deal with Bellator, PFL, signs a deal with Matchroom, with MVP, with anyone, if he does his own thing, ultimately, if these people give him these things that they're not willing to even talk to him about, and or the ability to box, they can't match that because they don't have that in place. This goes back to the Eddie Alvarez situation when he was talking with Bellator about pay-per-view, and they had to match and they had to create a pay-per-view in order to quote-unquote match his offer. Then they look even worse because now they couldn't match this shiny new deal that someone was offering. So you get ahead of it, brilliant move, PR-wise, and say, we are not even going to match anything. We're going to be the good guys and let him walk. The reality is they know they can't match whatever offer he's going to get. They don't want to take that L, so they're getting ahead of it and taking the W. At least in the eyes of the public, that's what they're trying to do. Do you get what I'm saying? So again, it goes back to the first question. First question was, are they hurting him financially? It's not about that. It's about the message they're trying to send to you, the UFC audience out there, who they think doesn't have access to shows like this, where we tell you the truth. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, 283, great card, 2 title fights. Talk about it. Excited. The bad, some of these things, there's contracts, money. The ugly, Francis, they don't want to give him certain things, or at least even engage in certain things, because again, as Francis said yesterday, he knew that maybe he won't get all these things, but they didn't even want to talk about any of them. They didn't even want to engage in any of them. PCAP high up in this. Hey, Ariel, that's his name. Great coverage of the Francis situation this week. Honest question. Is some of the luster lost in a Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou fight with Francis technically no longer being UFC heavyweight champion? No. I mean, he was the champ. His last fight, he defended the belt. Who cares if he has the belt or not? So, no. He goes on. Is it unfair to say that part of the appeal in that fight for baddest man on the planet was the fact that Tyson was facing the current UFC heavyweight champion? If Jon Jones wins the heavyweight title, the title of baddest man on the planet will instantly be bestowed upon him. I mean, it depends on who you believe. As Francis said yesterday, it's not undisputed. It's quite literally disputed because he's not in the fight. So don't believe that. I mean, I guess it's what do you want to believe? And what I believe to be true, because I saw it with my own eyes, Francis Ngannou was the champion. He didn't lose that belt. So that's why we have something called lineal heavyweight champion or lineal anything champion. And that means even though you don't have a belt, you're still the guy who hasn't been beat until someone beats you. For example, Leon Edwards is the lineal BMF champion of the UFC. You realize this, right? Jorge had the belt. He lost to Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman lost to Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is the BMF champ, whether you want to admit it or not. He's the welterweight and BMF champ. Crazy, right? So no. Tyson Fury versus Francis, to me, unless Fury loses to Usyk, if that fight gets done, that's baddest man on the planet. My boy Abe. Hello, Ariel. Great interview from Francis Ngannou. Now, as Francis has no manager, I've decided to pitch some ideas to get your thoughts. First, forget boxing Fury or AJ. Let's see Francis versus Dillian Whyte. Don't hate it. Don't hate it. It's a tall task. Jumping in there, fighting a Fury, a Joshua, even a Wilder. Wilder's no bum. He lost to Tyson Fury. That's it. No shame in that. 2-fight deal, he says. First fight boxing, second fight MMA. Co-promotion between Matchroom and Le Predator Promotions. Don't hate it. White has a history in kickboxing. Second, the Ngannou story needs to be a biopic or series. And if they need a name, The Power of Faith. Thirdly, wouldn't it be freaking nuts if Francis Ngannou turns up in San Antonio, Texas, as the 30th entrant in the Royal Rumble? I mean, that would be nuts. But I don't know. Would the pop be great? Would the pop be great? I don't know about that crossover. Like, remember when Cain Velasquez was brought into WWE? Like, it didn't feel like people even knew who he was, to be honest.
One difference there, though.
What's up, Rick?
Just look at Francis Ngannou versus Kane, right? When Francis Ngannou walks down that ramp, you don't even need to really know who he is to know that dude's like going to be a problem for whatever's next.
Fair.
And then you probably go, oh, isn't that guy who took people's head off in the UFC?
Yeah, I guess. But I remember when they brought out Kane, it was the SmackDown debut on Fox in LA. And by the way, LA is a place where he's had success and there was no reaction to him whatsoever. Now, I get what you're saying. Francis looks a lot different. He's jacked. He's bigger, all that stuff. But, you know as well as anyone, the Royal Rumble is fun because of the surprises and because you hear like the music or you see, the Titantron and it's like, oh shit, Edge is back. You hear on this day and you're like, what is Francis going to walk out to? He doesn't even have, memorable music. What is his song? Does he have a song? I don't even know if he has a song. It's not like Ain't No Sunshine. I get what you're saying though, but I just don't know if there's a crossover there. Between the two.
I ultimately agree. I just think if there's anybody who's not, a Conor McGregor, his physicality at least gives him that, where he could show up and people be like, oh, okay.
Could you imagine if they start playing Notorious and it is Conor? That would generate a pop, right?
That would be big business.
Conor walks down doing the Billy strut. Crazy. I wonder if he's allowed to now that Vince is back. Okay. He eliminates Brock, Abe goes on to say, leading to them facing off at WrestleMania 39. The Beast versus Le Prédateur. I mean, he's got to learn how to wrestle. It's not the easiest thing. Who's the real baddest man on the planet? P.S. Got chills watching your Martin Luther King tribute. Shout out to Robert Pearson for that. Thank you. And isn't it fitting that Francis can also now say free at last? It is. I love that he posted that. Although I didn't love that he posted y'all. I mean, have you ever heard Francis say y'all before? He had that in the caption. Thought maybe. I mean, he doesn't seem like a y'all kind of guy, right?
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. Much love, your boy Abe. Much love to you, Abe. Warheart MMA. With a win over Jamahal Hill on Saturday, do you see Glover A, retiring on top, B, he waits and faces Yuri again, C, fights Magomed Ankalaev? For me, would love nothing more than to see him retire on top and vacate the belt, causing another mess within the division. I know you would. I feel like UFC doesn't like that. We've seen some situations where a champion has walked away, i.e. GSP, i.e. Henry Cejudo. They don't like that because they feel like it devalues the title. And there is a case to be made there, by the way. Again, just like Francis, if you walk away and now there's a new title fight, like there's no lineage anymore. Like something gets broken. In the time-space continuum, is that a thing, Frank? I feel like you know about this. Time-space continuum. Like it gets broken, right?
Absolutely.
So I learned that from Back to the Future. Anyway, I feel like a conversation had to have happened with Glover when they made this fight. Like, hey, you're not going to leave if you win, right? At least not after the first fight, if you win the belt back. So I don't think that happens. He has not even hinted at that. I say B waits to fight Yuri again. Rematch of the best fight of 2022. That's the one. Andrew, we've been hearing a lot of hate lately, and I agree with you on all of it. You're the man, Ariel. But can we get a babyface promo about why you still love MMA and the fight game? Wow. And I hope that, when you ask this, Andrew, this is not you feeling like I hate MMA. Again, good, bad, and ugly. We got to cover what we got to cover. I would still argue that 90% of what we're covering is the good, and the fights and the characters. But you want to know why I still love MMA and the fight game? I'll tell you why I still love MMA and the fight game. I love MMA still because of the drama. I love MMA still because of the buildup. I love MMA still because of the rivalries. I love it because of Alexander Volkanovski and who he is as a person, and him trying to dare to be great and make history by beating the locomotive that is Islam Makhachev, the protege of one Khabib Nurmagomedov, in his home soil, on his turf, back in Australia. I love situations like that. I love stories like Leon Edwards defying the odds and beating Kamaru Usman, like we said, the equivalent to a Hail Mary or a 30-point shot in basketball. Just insane odds, and he pulled it off, and now he gets to defend the title back home in the UK, first pay-per-view since 2016. I love everything about Brandon Moreno versus Davis Figueiredo, reviving a weight class that was on its deathbed and now fighting 4 times tetralogy, quadrilogy, whatever the hell it is. I love everything about that. I love Shogun Rua. I love the legends from Pride. And I read today Mike Bond tweeted that this is the end of an era. He is the last Pride fighter who fought in Japan, left on the UFC roster. And when he leaves on Saturday night, that closes a huge chapter in the history of the sport. I love that chapter. I love that history. I love those legends. I love people like Glover Teixeira defying the odds and stumbling and coming back and getting an opportunity to fight back home in Brazil and to fight for a belt. I love stories like Chito Vera coming from nothing in Ecuador and now being so close to fighting for a belt and to finally, realizing his dream of becoming a UFC champion. I love stories like Valentina Shevchenko and the dominance that she has had and her skating by the skin of her teeth against Tayla Santos. I mean, I love that stuff. I love the drama. There's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than a big fight that you've been waiting for. Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler, and there's history and there's drama and there's tension and there's buildup and there's Madison Square Garden and there's all this stuff, and then it delivers. And it delivers beyond our wildest expectations. And it delivers with 2 guys who, probably won't be the best of friends and maybe are a lot more similar than they think, but golly, did they give us an incredible fight. with ups and downs, highs and lows. I love comeback stories like John Hathaway. Where else do you see that? That's incredible stuff. By the way, I'm doing all of this off the top of my head right now. I love stories like Drew Dober. I love stories like Muhammad Makhachev, who came from nothing and has had to defy the odds to get to the point that he's at right now. I love all this stuff. So please don't get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. Love this sport. My support and love for this sport has not wavered, and it's mainly because of the fighters. I'll be honest with you. The fighters are what keep me going. At this point, how many fights have I seen? And I'll be 1,000% honest, as I'm shooting right here from the hip, I have a hard time watching the Apex events. I have a very hard time. I was talking about this with New York Rick on Monday. I have a very hard time because of the fact that they feel soulless, because of the fact that they're sterile, but also because of the fact that they represent greed, in my opinion. There is no reason for those events to still be at the Apex. None whatsoever. Let's recognize what the Apex did for the UFC, for the sport, in 2020 and 2021. It's 2023. No one is doing this anymore. And everyone else would be killed if they were doing this. If WWE was still doing shows at their PC, they'd be killed. If basketball was still doing shows at Disney in front of no one, they'd be killed. If football were still doing shows in front of no one, they'd be killed. And by the way, no one is doing that because they want to make the money off ticket sales and whatnot. But they have a great situation, the UFC does, where they're this traveling circus. The real comparison is WWE, because they have to go from place to place to place all over the world every single week, essentially. 52 weeks, 43, but you get the point. AEW as well. You know, they get killed if they were doing things back at Daly's Place or whatever it's called in Jacksonville. So that's why it's hard for me. And I think that the fighters deserve better. I will always be a fighter first guy. You want to call me biased? I'll always be a fighter first guy. And so, yes, I do tend to lean towards the direction of the fighters because I feel that generally they get the short end of the stick. Francis Ngannou's window is that big. Dana White's window, UFC's window, Ari Emanuel's window is that big. You know, they can make money for life, and they have money for life and for generations. What does Francis have after, you know, he loses at some point down the line, if he loses at some point down the line? So I just feel like it's my job. Like I've been given this opportunity. I've been given this platform. And for whatever reason, there haven't been a lot of people to speak about the sport or report on the sport in the way in which I think it should be reported on. And so I feel like it's a duty. But please don't mistake us talking about the bad and the ugly for us not loving the good and not wanting to talk about the good and celebrate the good and report on the good and preview the good and recap the good, because that's often, I think, more often than not, what we do here. I love stories like Alex Pereira getting, you know, the win and now the rematch, if you will, between him and Izzy. Arnold Allen, bummed to hear about his rib injury. And yes, the fight was going to be Max Holloway. How great was that fight going to be? Max Holloway in London versus Arnold Allen. I mean, I love that, right? What a bummer. Feel for Arnold very much. Love people like DJ and obviously DC and Chris Weidman. I mean, I love all of it. So I feel like I've said enough. You get the point. Will Starr. Hi, Ariel. Will from Atlanta here. Shout out to GC. Given Bellator's overall struggles connecting with the fan base, how valuable do you think it could be for them to change their name? I realize the most ideal time for this would have been when Coker came in, but the second most ideal time would be now. They are suffering from an inferior product in a market that is very competitive and challenging. I just feel like the stink from the Bellator name has lingered for a long time, and this could allow for a fresh, quote-unquote, restart. Thoughts? I've been saying this for a long time. I agree with you. I thought they should have changed the name when Coker took over in 2014, 15, something like that, top of my head. And I don't hate the idea now. I really don't. Like, I thought they should have tried to do the deal with Jake Paul and call it like MVP MMA or something like that. Obviously, Jake Paul has done his deal with PFL and everything else going on. Fascinating time in the world of Jake Paul. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, by the way, February 25th in Saudi Arabia. Dan Rayfield reporting that the fight could end up on ESPN. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine, after all this stuff, Jake Paul fighting on an ESPN platform, probably plus pay-per-view? How crazy is that? And is that an indication of maybe Dana White's power, you know, weakening a little bit? Because I can assure you, when I was there, they weren't exactly very high on Jake Paul. Meaning, couldn't really talk about it all that much, if you catch my drift. I know another member of the team could share some stories about that, but I won't put him on the spot. Point is, that's a wild turn of events, an absolute wild turn of events if it actually materializes. Back to the original question, Bellator, yeah. I don't know what to compare it to, but like when something feels damaged or doesn't have the momentum behind it, a rebrand is never a bad thing. And I don't feel like there was a great connection with that name. Obviously, the best choice would have been Strikeforce, but Zuffa owns it. Cheeto pancakes. What is happening? So I'm setting the line. Oh, how about this? I just spoke about this. I'm setting the line at minus 250 that the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury fight does not happen. Wow, all right. I also just think this fight is incredibly uninteresting, especially after Jake just beat Anderson freaking Silva. All of his fights were clear step-ups, and this one feels like it is going in a totally different direction. On your list of opponents for Paul, where does Fury rank among them, and who would have been your top choice? Minus 250 that it doesn't happen. How do you feel about that, GC? You like that line?
No, I think it happens.
You think it
Plus
happens?
money on it happening.
Rick?
Not happening. Salt Poppy versus Jake Paul.
You think he's the backup?
I mean, he made a statement. Jake Paul talked about it. Logan Paul talked about it. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's Rick's wildest dream. It not happening.
Why are you such
I
a
would
big
love
Salt
that.
Pappy fan?
He's great. He's the best of these
He's also a
influencer
Tommy
boxers.
Fury hater. It's a combo. Of
Oh, wow. And he was on the show too?
I'm not a Tommy Fury hater. I'm a Tommy Fury truther.
Oh, well, wait. GC, sorry. I thought you were saying that Salt Poppy is the Tommy Fury hater. Are you saying Rick is
No,
the Tommy?
me.
Oh.
Rick is the Tommy Fury hater.
Isn't Salt Poppy, isn't he like a byproduct of this reality show world too? Or am I confusing him with someone else?
He's like a TikTok
Got it.
influencer. But no, I'm a Tommy Fury truther. I stand by that.
Okay, so you think the fight doesn't happen? Do you think Jake fights on February 25th?
Yes.
You think he fights Saudi Arabia, blah, 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 but like 11th hour, someone else slides in?
Well, the last time, the whole thing hinged on being in the UK, right? That's the reason, you want to do and then MSG and all these different locale changes. Now you've got a site that you're going to make a lot of money, no matter who steps in there. Jake Paul shows up. Now, I don't know if the promotions involved or the people of Saudi Arabia are going to go crazy if it's not Jake versus Tommy, that specific matchup. But if all that is really on the line is a Jake Paul fight, yeah, I don't think Tommy's going to be there. History has shown us.
I think we will all feel better if at least there's a press conference and they're both there, right? Because remember, even prior to the first fight, they had to do the virtual press conference. Now, this one was in the UK. Jake wasn't there. And then there was something in Vegas and Tommy wasn't there. And then, of course, we remember, this summer, MSG, Tommy couldn't come over. I think we will all feel a little bit better about this happening if there's some sort of press conference before. And maybe that won't even do it for you. I think we'll feel a little bit better if they're both in Saudi Arabia on fight week. And maybe that won't even do it for you. I think we'll all feel better if they're actually in the ring and someone says, like, ding, 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 let's get it on. So I don't blame you for being trepidatious. And yesterday when I tweeted it, I saw a lot of, hey, this fight isn't going to happen and Tommy's going to fumble it, blah, blah, blah. It does feel like Jake is kind of the babyface going into this one. Is that not accurate, Rick? Like, I feel like people are like, just shut this guy up or like be done with him already. Do you get that sense as well?
The sentiment is definitely pro Jake in this scenario because of what we talked about. And now I think, there's a little bit of tongue in cheekness about this. Like there are legitimate circumstances for why Tommy Fury couldn't make it to these fights. And it's not just, he's again, and we spoke about this when it comes to Francis Ngannou and other fighters. Tommy Fury is not scared of Jake Paul. He's not, period. Like that's just not a thing. But there have been circumstances that have prevented him from getting to the fight. But there is a question of how motivated are you to make it to the fight, and will you make it to the fight? I'm not confident. I think, listen, based on the suggestions you had, the timeline that you had, if they're both on the ground in Saudi Arabia for fight week, then I'll be pretty sure. I'll be pretty confident.
I will also say this: if this fight doesn't happen, like if it doesn't materialize,
no mas.
Please. For the love of God. I mean, it's bold to even go back to it for a third time. You can't go back to it for a fourth time. You just can't. It's not Khabib Tony-esque where the world is like, I get why he wants to do it. He's as you put it on Twitter, he's invested time in the rivalry. Also, he's a quote unquote real boxer, blah, blah, blah. The name on paper, it all makes sense. It made sense for the first time. It made sense for the second time. Third time, all right, fine. There's a lot of money involved. It's Saudi Arabia. Can't go back to it if it fizzles for a third time. Some people have been asking me if I'm going to be working this broadcast. And obviously, we talked about, potential landing spot for the broadcast has nothing to do with any of that. But I'll just say I'm not going to be working this one. And that was a personal decision, was brought up, was asked, but a personal decision that I will leave at that for now. And I'm curious to see if it does happen. And I'm curious to see where he goes, Jake, that is, if he wins. Because I do think there is a case to be made that you've got Nathan Diaz right there. Like, why not just take that fight? Make that fight, right? I'm sure there's a ton of money involved here. But like, we've been hearing about Nate versus Jake for a long time, and now that fight is right there. We're like right there. And so there is a risk involved, right? Like, what if he slips? Then I feel like there's no interest in the Nate fight. If he wins emphatically, then the interest is still there. It's all good. Maybe we get it in the summer. But there's a risk here because we got to the end of this whole Nate saga and he's right there and you're taking one more. Bigger fight in terms of, buzz, popularity, business, in your opinion, Rick? Nate versus Jake or Jake versus Tommy?
Nate versus Jake.
GC?
Nate versus Jake, yeah.
So there you go.
I don't think, is that even a question?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you say the boxing people don't. I don't know. I'm just trying to confirm my own thoughts. So there's a risk here that they're taking, right? You're taking a fight before a potentially other big fight. And I don't think the Nate thing is fait accompli, as I've been saying for a while. And I do think the PFL component does, like, if they're really trying to do that, I don't see Nate in the PFL. I just don't. Maybe I'm crazy. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. You were going to say something?
My
Rick?
question is, this fight seems to be made for Jake Paul, right? Like, if nobody's clamoring for Tommy Fury, and it's based on the reaction we've seen, it doesn't seem like anybody is. It's clearly Jake Paul deciding he wants to fight Tommy Fury, but you could put somebody else in there, and as long as Jake Paul's okay with that outcome, then ultimately that's what matters to the bottom line. But the Nate fight, I think, is a step up from that, where now you're bringing somebody to the table who's bringing a lot more to it, who's elevating the fight and being able to sell it and bringing name value that's going to actually, enhance it, as opposed to just kind of be the opponent.
Right. A bit of breaking news here, Frank. So I'm doing this all on the fly here. I'm not really, doing the whole reporter thing, but it does sort of feel like the chances of Aljamain Sterling, maybe do 3 title fights. It does sort of feel like the Aljamain Sterling versus Valentina Shevchenko versus Henry Cejudo fight is in jeopardy for March 4th. We talked to Aljo about this on Monday because, and I just had this. Oh yeah, here it is. UFC has just issued a press release about Ciryl Gane versus Jon Jones. Tickets go on sale Friday, January 20th. So that's in 2 days. They've announced that fight, obviously. They've also announced Viviane Araújo against Amanda Ribas. Bo Nickel returning against one Jamie Pickett. So they're running that one back. Remember, it was supposed to happen in December. Now it's going to happen March 4th. Bo got injured. Jeff Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Very nice. Derek Brunson versus Dricus du Plessis. We knew about that. Cody Garbrandt versus Julio Arce. Julian Marquez versus Marc-André Barriot. Jessica Penne against Tabitha Ritchie. That's a good card. And I'm seeing here from Carlos Legaspi of ESPN Deportes that Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso is also going to be on that card. So there's your second title fight. I also saw another report from Carlos, who's a great reporter and usually, if not always, right. Where was this? I saw another one Was it Carlos or no? No, it was someone else. It was. Let me see right here, real quick, my friends. It was. Rafael Marinho of Globo, who's another great reporter, who reported that they're working on Amanda Nunes against Irene Aldana for UFC 285. So there would be a third title fight. All right, so there you go. Like I said, they sometimes do 3. Man, Nunes and Shevchenko fighting on the same card, not against each other. Could we do Aldana versus Grasso? That would be weird. They're very good friends. Although, great story there, right? Grasso and Aldana, the 2 Mexican-born friends fighting for belts on the same card. That's fun. Wish that was going on in May, around Cinco de Mayo. That would be great. But still great, nonetheless. Or September. Mexican independence. All right, so we'll see. Lots going on. How about that? News coming in hot and heavy. Let's see. They didn't call me for my thoughts on all the fights. All right, let's go back to the questions.
Real quick, do you think Nate's camp said, yeah, we want the fight, but not now?
No.
Okay.
No. Ariel and friends. Is the London pay-per-view ultimately a letdown? We got Leon Usman rematch, but none of the other UK stars are available. Didn't I say this? I feel like I said this on the show. No Paddy, no Molly, no Till, no Aspinall, and Allen are all sidelined. With the card missing those fighters, along with the expectation of it being a stadium show, it feels like this card has missed the mark. There's a case to be made, and sometimes timing doesn't work out. I still think you're getting Leon versus Kamaru, and that's massive. And it's back home, and it's a pay-per-view, and it's a title fight. Haven't had that in quite some time. And Gaethje versus Fiziev is gigantic. And by the way, I've heard from the British fans in the past, like, we don't just want, UK versus the world cards. We want a regular pay-per-view. Well, you're getting a great co-main. But imagine it was Allen, Holloway, and then Gaethje Fiziev. That'd be huge. But yeah, I get what you're saying. They love to cheer their own.
It's a good card.
It is a good card. But, Paddy, Molly, Till, Aspinall, Allen, those are the big names.
I think this does point to why the UFC may have been trepidatious about booking the stadium ahead of having all this locked in, right?
Yeah.
Like this, if this was booked for a stadium, it wouldn't look great because this is not a stadium worthy show.
Yeah. O2 is the safe bet, and it will sell out.
Yeah, this is a good card. I think people will be happy at the end of the night.
And Leon Kamaru is such a big fight and such a big moment for UK MMA that it sort of trumps everything, to be honest.
That's exactly right.
Sam, hi Ariel. Which event was more entertaining last weekend? One Fight Night 6 or UFC Fight Night? Cheers to you and the crew. Also, it's a 2-for-1. Moderator Lewis is telling me. Corey, hey Ariel, longtime listener, first-time question asker. I was wondering if you had any ideas on who else One Championship will be putting on its first US card in May. If not, who would you and the team want to be on the card? Solditch, Gordon Ryan, let me know. You guys rock. Keep killing it. I don't know. Well, to answer the first question, I guess the UFC one. It was kind of 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other, one of my favorite sayings. As far as the US debut, well, it's going to be DJ against Moraes. Sage Northcutt, he's still around? That'd be cool. Gordon Ryan would be great, but I don't think they have a deal with him. Solditch would be cool, but does it really, he's Croatian. But yeah, bring out all the big guns. Angela Lee, and maybe they sign someone between now and May. David, hey Ariel, first off, as a Dolphins fan, congrats to you and your Bills on the W. Now on to my question. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Great win. No shit talk. Much respect. Closer than I expected, and never really believed in that 13.5 line, if I'm being honest, but we let you hang around. I think a lot of it was self-inflicted, if I'm being honest. It was a lot of uncharacteristic Josh mistakes, but hey, that's football. I do think the Bengals got luckier than the Bills did, if you catch my drift. Come on. Goal line fumble. What the hell was that? As we are approaching what could be Shogun Rua's swan song, what is your favorite Shogun Rua moment? Well, him winning the belt in Montreal is tremendous. Remember, UFC 104 in LA got robbed against Machida, run it back in May. That fight was in October, run it back in May of the following year, 2010. He wins in Montreal emphatically. That was great. Great moment interviewing him in the Canadians restaurant at the Bell Center, late night, like 2, 3 a.m. That was amazing stuff. Him winning the Prague Grand Prix was huge. Middleweight Grand Prix, I believe 2005. And then the Henderson fight. I mean, what was bigger than that? That was incredible. Obviously, they were both involved, and they did it again. And the second fight was actually pretty damn good too. No one really talks about the second fight. The second fight was a FS1. Was it on a Sunday? The second fight, or am I crazy? I think the second fight. Am I crazy for thinking it was on a Sunday? Let me see here real quick. Second fight, March 23rd, 2014. What day was March 23rd, 2014? It was a Sunday.
By the way, while you look that up,
I remember
the third fight was freaking great too.
They fought a third fight?
Yeah.
Wow, I have no recollection of the third fight. Wait,
in 2020. We're talking about Shogun and Little Nog, yes?
No, we're talking about Shogun and Dan Henderson. There wasn't a third fight.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of Little Nog.
No.
I jumped in late. Sorry there.
Fuck, I was like, am I losing my brain cells? By the way, you want to know something crazy? March 23rd, 2014, Sunday night, right? I got that right. The Knicks played the Hawks that day. Let's see if I'm right. And they lost a heartbreaker. Knicks, Hawks, March 23rd. February 23rd. Wait, is there another one? March 23rd. No, didn't get it right, motherfucker. Knicks, March 23rd, 2014. Cavs. They lost by 6. No, March 22nd. No, March 23rd. March 23rd, 2014, Cavs Knicks. Oh, I guess they were wearing, yeah. All right. It was a bad loss. The 27 and 44 Cavs beat the 29 and 41 Knicks.
Huge dub.
Jared
Wait,
Jack,
so
Dion
okay,
Waiters.
so this actually raises a question for me. So I feel like the 3 fights with Lil Nog are the thing.
Hendo.
I'm not foolish enough to say that the two fights between Henderson and Shogun weren't like elite, but across 3, like even that was pretty special.
Hendo, man. Hendo is arguably second greatest fight in UFC history. Arguably first.
Yeah, it's up there. It's definitely up there.
And by the way, that night was the best. Alvarez and Chandler in Florida. And I mean, it was just the best. That has nothing to do with Shogun.
Insane. No, but yeah, just the confluence of MMA things happening was insane. That Grand Prix run by Shogun is like
legendary,
unmatched. It's unmatched. It's hard to say like the moment. It's more just like the body of work, the things that he put together. There's lots of moments, but man, that Grand Prix run, just insane.
2005, beats Quinton, first round, beats Little Nog in June. First one was in April. Then on the same night, beats Overeem and beats Ricardo Arona.
People don't know, like newer fans listening to this right now don't know what any of that means. That was the thing. This is it back then. These are the names. Like he did it.
It does feel after losing to Jones that it was never quite the same, right?
No, but I mean, even getting to the UFC title by that point, I think is an insanely impressive achievement.
Remember when he stumbled
this dude had been fighting for so long? Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like it looked like it wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And then those performances against Machida, where I would argue that he won the first fight, obviously won the second fight. And then, there's no shame in losing to what many consider the greatest fighter of all time in Jon Jones. Like he had a good early UFC run after looking like it was going to be a stumble. And then, since then it's just up and down, but he's an aging fighter. That's how that goes. And we still got some magic out of him and Henderson.
The rear naked UFC 76 against Forrest Griffin, the loss. That one was headlined by Keith Jardine beating Chuck Liddell. Yom Kippur night. Everyone was going nuts. Like, Keith Jardine, Chuck Liddell, that's not a real main event on pay-per-view. They were all upset about that. We were very spoiled back in 2007. And then he comes back, beats Mark Coleman, beats Chuck Liddell in Montreal. Montreal was very good to Shogun. Gets the title fight, loses, comes back, beats Machida. No successful defenses.
Quote unquote loses.
Yeah. No successful defenses. Loses to Jones. Beats Forrest in the rematch. Loses to Hendo in the classic. Beats Brandon Vera. Loses to Gustafsson. Loses to Chael. Maybe the worst loss of all. I mean, do you think that was a worked fight because it was on FS1, the debut, and Chael was on FS1?
Oh, stop this. Don't do this.
You remember the promo?
Remind me.
I'm the only one in FS1. I mean, Chael had a great promo that led them to Fox Sports Live. Like, it was like the perfect lead into the debut.
Yeah.
With Andy Roddick and Carissa Thompson. Who else was on that? Was there a basketball player? You remember they had the panel? They had Jay and Dan.
Yes,
the panel.
I don't remember who was on it, but yes, they had somebody from each individual type of
Donovan McNabb.
sport arena. That's right. That's right.
And they had Andy Roddick talking about like football. Andy Roddick, FS1,
but
original panel.
How good is Chael on the mic? I mean, just all timer. Just
it was amazing.
The best. To be able to do that, to be able to toss it that way.
Oh, it was incredible. I remember I was backstage and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. So it was Dan O'Toole and Jay Onright. And then they went to Carissa Thompson featuring Donovan McNabb, Andy Roddick, Ephraim Salam, Gabe Kapler, and Gary Payton. There it was. Gary Payton.
Gary, that would be the NBA representation. There you go. Wow, good pull, though, to get all the rest of them.
Yeah, well, I looked that part up.
Oh, cheater. But yes, Shogun Rua, very special fighter. Obviously, the earlier part of his career where more of the magical moments happen, but the dude's got a resume and deserves a lot of respect.
And I maintain him and Eduardo, one of the all-time greatest duos in the history of the sport, who we'll see hopefully later on.
I'm with you.
Blaine, Ariel, and crew, I hope it is a great day in New York for y'all. Jon Jones recently signed an 8-fight deal. My question for y'all is, do you think Jon Jones will actually fight 8 more times? How many fights of this deal do you actually think will happen? Peace and blessings to you all. By the way, that's exactly why this Francis thing, and to a degree, the Nathan Diaz thing, is so wild. Like, it's so hard to actually finish the deal if you're a UFC fighter. 8 fights? That could take you, like, to 2029. Once, twice a year. Like, 8 fights a long-ass time. What are we setting the line at, GC, as far as 8 fights? How many of those fights does Jon Jones actually participate in? 4? Do you think that's appropriate line? Or you think
I was going to say set the line 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
You're taking the over or the under?
Probably the under. I mean, he's 35 years old right now. How often is he going to fight? What are we setting the line at him completing all 8 fights?
Oh, God.
No, minus 5,000? I would be shocked if he does all 8 fights.
Yeah. That's a tough one. What about the number one Jon Jones fan? 4.5, you taking the over or the under?
Unabashed. I do love me some Jon Jones.
Jon Jones truth.
I think, honestly, I really truly believe this, and I'm not trying to.
Oh, here we go. He's gonna do 9. He's gonna give them an extra one.
No, but what I'm saying is, yes, I'm not trying to further the narrative, but I think it depends on how this one goes, right? If he goes in there, wins, and then starts to put together a little bit of a run, I could see a world where Jon Jones, for the first time in a very long time, decides, hey, I want to actually fight regularly and lock in on this. And he could knock out 3 a year if he's doing that. I don't see why he couldn't do 3 this year, do 3 next year.
So not only are you saying
I could
he's
see
going
a
to
world.
do it, he's going to be done by July of 2025.
I could see. Look, it's either going to happen that way or not at all. I'll put it like that. He's either going to. He doesn't have the time left in his career to do what he's done for the last X number of years.
Mm-hmm.
He just can't get to 8 if he's fighting once a year or not at all. But if he's locked in and the partying days are behind him and the extracurriculars are behind him and he decides to lock in, why not? I could see it.
Selfishly, I wish he would have taken the 3-fight deal and then we see more interest. You know, like, to me, this is all good for the business, right? 3 fights and then we see Francis versus Jon. Co-promotion, Le Predateur Promotions with Bones Productions.
I think basically what I'm saying is I think we'll know how close Jon Jones will get to be completing that contract by when is his next fight booked after the March fight. Yeah. That's when we'll really know. If he's back in 3 months.
Yeah.
It'll then I believe it.
And he has had some quick turnarounds. I mean, at least he agreed to a quick turnaround. He fought in end of April 2016 and then was supposed to fight DC July of 2016. And obviously it didn't happen because of the drug test, but he was there. He was there fight week. King Yos. Hey, Ariel, hope all is well. With all the news in the UFC this week, oh, by the way, this is a quick fire section, all right? Here we go. With all the news in the UFC this week, is it fair to say that Edwards-Usman fight was quiet? I mean, do you mean the announcement? Yeah. How underwhelming was that? Give us a cool video package, a sizzle, a headshot, bang, pound for pound. What? Give me something. It was a throwaway at a weird press conference. Yeah. Quiet. Weird. Very weird. But I guess it was like a bad kept secret. Still, would love to see a little, more than like a picture. It wasn't even like the poster. Why do they have to come out with the poster weeks after the announcement? Why can't they come out with the poster when the fight is announced instead of like the generic one that they do? Who knows? One of the questions we'll never really know the answer to. Dupez. Hey, Ariel, have you heard anything about the UFC coming back to Canada in 2023? Also, one for you and the crew. Where were each of your favorite top hip-hop albums of 2022? As far as Canada is concerned, they were hoping to go there in September. Didn't come to fruition. There were still the travel restrictions. Those don't exist. I feel pretty good. I have not heard anything, but I'd like to think there's a chance they come back to Canada. Maybe back into the year. So let's see, but I feel pretty good. Hip-hop albums of 2022.
Mine's easy.
Yeah?
Heroes and Villains, Metro Boomin came out the very end of 2022. Fantastic album.
Metro Boom?
Oh man. Metro Boomin, producer, gets like all these rappers to come on the album.
Who's the singer? Who's the rapper?
A bunch of different ones.
Oh, really? There's no like main guy?
Scott, Future, Gunna. No, he's a producer. It's like DJ Khaled type thing. Mike Will Made It type thing, and he does an album about that.
Good. Great. Amazing. I'm asking. These are questions. It was good?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I thought you were like patronizing me.
No, I'm asking. Like, how would you categorize it? Oh, you loved it?
It was fantastic. I mean, yeah, it's just like everyone he had on it, all the beats. I mean, he's probably the best beat maker right now, in my opinion. Her Loss, 21 Savage, Drake.
I was just going to say, I was looking at it right here. Here it is.
Her Loss is pretty good.
Yeah, I like Circo Loco. Still got to see the Gunners win Premier League, It's all right. What about you, Frank? I feel like you've got a good one here.
There wasn't really any hip-hop album that stood out to me last year.
Yeah.
Not a single one.
Not a single one, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually hard-pressed for album of 2022 right now.
Period.
You
seem like a Kendrick guy, Mr. Morale, the Big Steppers.
I heard a good couple tracks, but just nothing sticking out.
It was all right.
I'll be honest with you guys. I'm more of a fan of 90s hip-hop. Like, I often find myself not liking the newer stuff. I don't know if that, like, people love Kendrick Lamar. I'm like, yeah, give me Tupac, give me Biggie.
Oh no, I love Kendrick.
Don't really see. There's just, I don't really feel like any of it is like real legendary stuff. I feel like in the 90s we were super spoiled. It was just like legendary after legend. I mean, even early 2000s, Outkast and
See, I think the further we get away from it, the more it'll be glorified.
You think so?
Sense.
I don't think this is a nostalgic thing.
Oh man. Like the run, like you love Drake. The run Drake went on from like 2010 to like 2016.
Yeah, but that was like 10 years ago. 2010. Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to
and I love Drake.
How legendary something is in the current day.
To a degree, but I love Drake. I feel like I can also honestly say the stuff of today doesn't touch the stuff of 10 years ago, right?
I mean, there's no doubt. Like it's always a young man's game. Right. Everything is.
You'll say the exact same thing in 10 years from
now. About the current Drake stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I disagree.
No, about music in general right now.
You're talking about Take Care. If you're reading this too late.
Especially the Kendrick Lamar stuff.
You think so? All right. That being said, yeah, I guess I'll go with your pick. I guess, does New York Rick have one?
He looks like he does.
I'm not sticking my neck into this conversation.
All right, fine.
It's only downside.
I would
have liked you by Future. Another great one.
No.
Atlanta based.
Future is?
Of course.
Who's the one from Atlanta?
Let's go to Atlanta and we'll all go to Magic City together.
That's the place with the wings?
Yeah, Magic City on a Monday. No, they've got more than wings.
Why a Monday?
Magic City on a Monday. Magic Mondays. That's when it goes off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bro. Come
Is
on.
that when Lou Williams goes? Was Lou Williams the one?
Yeah, lemon pepper Lou. He got the lemon pepper wings.
Who's the other one from Atlanta that everyone loves?
There's a million. Young
No.
Thug, who's in jail right now, trying to get out. Free Thug, Gunna just got out.
Not him. There's the other one.
Ludacris.
No.
Amigos.
No, not
Metro
Migos.
Boomin,
Not Migos.
Quavo.
No.
Offset. Rest in peace, Takeoff.
Yeah. No, there was someone else from Atlanta that everyone loves with a weird name.
21 Savage.
Legend.
I don't know how many of these I can name here.
All right. Whatever happened to UFC Puerto Rico? I was there when Dana made the big announcement with the Pettis brothers, but nothing came about. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously plans changed over the last few years, but had not heard anything since. Taco Enthusiast, hi, Ariel. If somebody asked you the simple question, who are you? How would you respond? Wow. Taco getting deep. Who am I?
Yeah, who are you?
The first thing that came to mind was journalist. I know some people would combat that. Who am I? Profession-wise, journalist. Father, husband, Jew, Canadian/American. So I often play this game with people. If someone says, like, what are you? That's an interesting one. Someone says, what are you? What is the first thing that comes to mind, Frank?
Human.
Human?
Yeah.
I think I say Jewish. I think I
Alright.
say Jewish or Canadian.
Like if someone just walked up to you on the street randomly, no pre-context,
Yeah.
and was just like, what are you? You'd just be like, Jewish.
Yeah. I feel like that's where my mind goes. What about you?
I have no idea what I'd say.
Well, if I ask you right now, what are you?
Yeah, what? What do you mean? What am I?
What are you?
Plays his confusion.
What are you? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Yeah, I guess what Frank said.
Human?
Human. There we
Male,
go.
guy,
Who are you?
dude,
Who are you?
American.
This is really devolved.
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
I mean, he
I
asked
don't
me
know
the
what
question.
I'd say. Yeah, I'd be incredibly caught off guard.
Rick,
Rick, who are
who
you?
are you?
I would just say
no,
I'm
it's
here.
what are you?
That's
I thought
it.
it was
You were
what
here?
are you? If you asked me who are you, I'd be like, oh, I'm Connor. Nice to meet you, man.
That was
You were
Ariel's
saying what are you?
Yeah. I guess if someone says who are you, just say your name. But I was
I thought the question was what are you?
no. The question is who are you?
Oh, then yeah, I'd say my name. I thought it was what are you?
I feel like Taco is looking for something a little deeper than my name.
Yeah, taco enthusiast sounds real deep.
Stop it! Wow, that's not very nice. He's asked some good questions. How about Connor from Canada weighing in? Hi, Ariel. With the announcement of Jeff Molina being suspended for involvement in the Krause situation, crazy news, right? That sort of flew under the radar. Was it yesterday that came out? And this is something that we suspected.
Yeah, I think the official suspension was yesterday.
What a shame, right? I mean, if it comes out that he was involved in any kind of way, this is a fighter that had a tremendous future, very talented. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I was wondering if you or the team had any update or even comments on how the situation is unfolding. I feel like the story has faded given the other stories of the past weeks. All right, yeah, true. But in my opinion, this could still be the big story in MMA. True. We talked about it on the award show. As someone in Ontario, I still can't place bets on the UFC big, and there still could be a lot more uncovered. Thank you, Connor. Alberta's back. Ontario not. Still feel like Ontario might be a long holdout given their history with MMA and their feelings towards it. But yeah, I mean, it's clearly still unfolding. There is clearly a lot more going on. Hence, Jeff Molina. Let's see.
His support the Discord was like so damning. I have it right here.
Oh.
He said this of James Krause in the Discord. He said he's trained with a lot of fighters, lives and breathes this sport as a coach and a fighter, and at times has the scoop on injuries, non-announced matchups, how fighters look like in camp, etc. Molina wrote in the Discord. In stocks, this is called insider trading. In MMA betting, it's called James Krause. For the last 6 months, all my bills, including mortgage and car note, have been paid via Krause's picks. Do yourself a favor and join the VIP. I mean, that is just, the fact that that got out is why he even wrote that. It's just like, as I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, please stop typing right now.
Yeah.
And there's like old tweets coming up of Krause now where he's like, it's not gambling if you know you're going to win. He tweeted that back in like 2012.
Oof.
Sketchy, man. Sketchy stuff.
It's not gambling if you know you're going to win. Jeez Louise. That is bad. And Molina was the one that went back at Megan Anderson, right? somewhat aggressively. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely heard that there were some fighters involved here, so we'll see what more comes of this. By the way, I wanted to mention, and this has nothing to do with the question, but a shocking story last night coming out in the world of pro wrestling. Jay Briscoe, a legend in the independent scene, one half of the Briscoes, ROH champion, passed away. I just saw from Mark Raimondi of ESPN that the Delaware State Police announced Wednesday that Briscoe died in a head-on collision crash in Delaware. The driver of the other vehicle also died, and Briscoe's 2 daughters, passengers in his truck, were injured. The cause of the crash is under investigation. His real name, Jamin Pugh, and he was just 38. Horrendous stuff. And I've seen some tweets about his daughters and prayers being asked for them, so our heart goes out to them and love and thoughts and prayers and just wishing them the best. It's just a horrendous thing. I just saw that, so I wanted to mention. Jordan B asks, hey, Ariel, you had mentioned that there was a Jon Jones clause in Gane's contract. Can you clarify what that means? Love the long-form video investigative journalism pieces you have been doing recently. Keep up the great work. What I meant by that was Ciryl Gane has a contract. In that contract, which Dana White didn't state, which is why I thought the question was good, he has a deal. Let's say it's like a 6-fight deal, right? But in the contract, it states, if you fight Jon Jones, much like in many contracts, it states, if you fight for the belt, X is you'll get paid X. In his contract, he has something that states, if you fight Jon Jones, you'll get paid X. Different than the other, how many fights are on the deal. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what the clause is. Clause, carve out, whatever the hell you want to call it. Stipulation. So this is something they wanted, pushing for, hoping for, and it suggests that he's getting more to fight Jon Jones, which is great. Matmo, bonjour, Lord Ariel. As someone who suffers from extremely high amounts of anxiety, I borderline had a panic attack on Wednesday's show when your audio started cutting out during the Brandon Moreno interview. Frank, we almost gave Matmo a panic attack.
Wow. Sorry to hear that.
This is only because we all know how much pride you take in your work and your show running smoothly. I thought Brandon did a good job rolling with it, and you did a fabulous job bouncing back and working through it as well. But I still couldn't help but feel for Frank and the fellas in the back who must have been in emergency fix-it mode, having their own mini panic attacks. Frank didn't seem to care. He walked in here like he was in Central Park. Cup of coffee.
People just...
With this in mind, my question is, would you ever consider moving your show from live to pre-recorded, similar to how Rogan now does it? This would prevent such instances from occurring live and maybe lead to less stress for the team. Also, what really went down during that audio glitch? We'd love to hear from Frank and the guys in the back on what really happened. Happy late New Year, and thanks for being the #1 show in combat sports. No, I would hate that. Everything I do, I like to be live. I feel like there's an energy. The fact that I know that I'm speaking right now and you can watch this in real time or hear them in real time gives me a great energy. Pre-tape, all that, like when I was doing the pre-tape stuff, pandemic from home, I did not like it. I felt soulless. There is an energy to being live. So I prefer live, and I will always shoot for live. So no to that. Frank, do you want to address the glitch? What happened?
Sure. There's a little button under your desk that
You're still going with that?
Look.
Jesus. I can't
The guy asked a question. Do you want me to answer it? Or?
I can't hit the button.
I didn't say that you would.
There's 5
two
inches.
cables that go into the button that attenuates your voice so you can mute yourself to cough. And one of the cables started to slide out of it. And we were in the middle of an interview, so I just bypassed it. So now you don't have the cough button anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking it away from you.
This thing doesn't work?
No, it's not even plugged in.
Wow, I can't believe that.
Which, I mean,
By the way,
were coughing yesterday.
Yeah,
right
wait.
on the mic. Weren't even trying for the button. So don't.
Wow.
It literally got asked me. The TD was like, does he have the cough button? Why is he not backing up for the mic? I'm like, I don't know.
By the way,
it's good of a commercial.
TD.
Wait a second. When did you eliminate the cough button? Because
right in the middle of the Brandon interview.
That's I've used the cough button since the Brandon interview, and you didn't tell me that it was eliminated. And 1,000% yesterday, I recall
coughing right into the mic.
No, but pressing the button. You don't see me pressing the button.
No, I don't. So I didn't.
Yes, I'm pressing it right now. Can you see me? if I'm like
the button being
I have two things to say here.
Wow, that is so messed up. So I'm coughing, thinking that I'm all good.
At least you're not like saying something under your breath about a guest or
Wow, this is crazy.
One, someone hit me up on Twitter yesterday and was like, seems like the cough button isn't working today. So
Oh my God. When were you planning on telling me?
It's a real thing.
Thank God for this dude.
Two, can we talk about the TD right there?
Oh, that just was a slip
Oh,
of
wow.
names.
No
We
respect
have
for
names,
Andy?
Frank.
Jeez Louise.
I'm used to it.
Cable slipped
Wow.
What did
That-
I say about you, Frank?
I was just wondering, when were you planning on telling me that the cough button wasn't working anymore?
Once we were able to find a workaround.
Wait, so what if I would have done it today?
Okay, look, we've all made mistakes, right?
Wow. That is crazy. Because I remember coughing yesterday and being like, oh, thank God. I actually said thank
made
God
no
to myself.
effort to like back away.
Because I'm using the cough
Again,
button.
it attenuates. It doesn't silence entirely. So,
By the way, if I'm like this and I'm pressing the cough, I'm thinking that it's eliminating the cough.
okay.
So you want me to do? Oh, you want me to do this to the guest? You want me to press the cough and also just go? Like, what do you want me to do? Oh my God, this is crazy! Wow, that's kind of messed up. First of all, you blame me for the glitch.
No,
Second of all,
nobody has
you
blamed
eliminate
you.
the thing that eliminates the cough and don't even tell me about it. Wow. Some guy. Sam Helwani, longtime listener, first time asker. Just a fun one for you and the crew regarding the way the show runs each week. Oh, can't wait for this. Who arrives earliest to the set? I actually don't know. I'm about to find out. Who isn't a morning person? I have my pick for that one. Are there any funny stories from behind the scenes, from debates or slagging matches, roasting for the Americans between you and the boys? Cheers from Dublin, Ireland. All right. Who does arrive the first?
It's Alex.
Alex,
Yeah.
who unfortunately isn't here today, but generally. What time do you think he arrives?
9.
9 a.m. Eastern. All right. Who arrives last? That would be me.
Yep.
Usually around 11:30, I would say, ish.
Yeah, we cross paths when we're going up to eat. So yeah.
Wow. What is that? By the way, is this on the air right now?
Yes.
Okay, phew. I wasn't sure if I had to repeat everything that you were saying.
No, you don't have to.
All right. And who comes after Alex?
Usually me.
Oh. Who comes next?
I don't like where this is going.
Maybe Joe.
Joe?
No, I like Connor.
Connor?
Yeah.
Then Joe, then Frank?
Yeah.
Wow. I would always think that the audio guy would be there first because there's like a
I
lot
just
of
sit
wires.
around waiting for the run of show to be put out and everyone to be on the spot to rehearse with me.
I come in on time. I come in at 10 o'clock. That's my call time.
There it is. Who of the team isn't a morning person? Frank definitely isn't a morning person.
We're all morning people.
You think so?
Yeah.
I feel like you're like a guy who wears the sweatshirt. Don't talk to me until I have my third
I come in,
coffee.
I'm like, snoochie boochies. Say hi to everyone.
Oh my gosh. Any funny stories from behind the scenes? I mean, you got an insight into the
Generally,
chat.
and this is funny, like I'll come in and I'll start asking like, hey, when do we want to do this? And they're like, oh, Frank comes in here wanting to work. And it's
Yeah.
a whole thing. And I do get frustrated with that because I'm like, well,
Oh, you get frustrated.
yeah, because I'm like, well, I'm not going to just sit here.
Yeah, that's true. Like you didn't come just to chat, right?
Exactly.
That's a good point. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No.
I noticed that Connor very quiet in this particular moment.
Because he's working.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know.
You're not one to air the dirty laundry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rick comes. Well, he comes late. When he's here on Monday, he shows up at like 12:45 because he's upstairs doing other stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm in the calf
Yeah.
from like 10:45, 11.
Right. All right. There's some insight. Davo, good afternoon, Ariel. You and Chael P are obviously good friends, and he references segments of your show quite often. Dare I say, he wouldn't have a show without our content, sometimes with a vastly different take on the issue. My question is, does he ever call you up and say, I got to tell you, partner, you've got this one all wrong? No. I mean, it's kayfabe, right? I mean, we're not working all the time. We're shooting. And if so, how passionate do these exchanges get? I remember early days of Ariel the Bad Guy. There were some moments where I was like, does Chael hate me? What is going on here? But then I don't know if he was trying to test me or something, but it was all well and good. There are times where he's like, I want to get your take on this or what's going on here, but we never argue. I mean, I consider Chael a good friend. I feel like and he's a lovely guy and actually one of the most humble and down-to-earth people that I've ever met. Very much different than the public Chael that, people think he's a certain way, and he is not that way at all. Quirky fellow, but lovely fellow. Truly lovely. And his wife is equally as lovely, the great Miss Brittany. Anyway, thanks for providing such great content for us for so long. Have a great one. Thank you. Just a couple more. Yaron. Hi, Ariel. In your opinion, what's the greatest sports jersey of all time and why? Example, the Jordan 23 Bulls jersey. And here's why you should consider the South African national rugby team. They're called the Springboks, number 6 jersey. He writes, the jersey was famously worn by Nelson Mandela on the day the Springboks won the Rugby World Cup for the first time on home soil, just 1 year after South Africa became a democracy. The jersey was also worn that day by the Springbok captain, Francois Pienaar. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, who Mandela presented the trophy to, a scene and day that has literally been made into a movie, Invictus. Wow. Moderator Lewis says there's 2 ways to split this question. Best sports jersey and number for emotional reasons. Best sports jersey for pure aesthetic reasons. I mean, the one that comes to mind for me, the one that meant the most to me as a child was Ewing 33 Knicks. That's the one that I drew on all my books forever. Thurman Thomas 34 Bills, big one. The old school Expos jersey, the powder blue in particular, and also the off-white one, tremendous. Pick your guy, Gary Carter, Andre Dawson, Tim Raines, Rusty Staub. Those are ones that are near and dear to my heart. I also love the Canadians red and white. But those are all emotional ones for me, right? Those are all personal ones. If I had to be unbiased, I mean, there's so many classic ones. I love the old school Sonics jersey, the one that says Sonics. A Gary Payton or Sean Kemp come to mind. Love the old school Nuggets jersey. Tremendous. I was a big fan of that one as well. Falcons red is a nice one, GC. I like the Falcons red.
Yeah, I'd rather have the throwback black with the straight up Falcon.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just listening to anything right now.
Yeah, just like the coolest jerseys of all time.
Favorite Atlanta one was the Hawks 90s with the big hawk on it. Black fades to red.
I like the Wilkins era Hawks better.
Oh, yeah, yellow and red. That's a good one.
There's a faded blue Nets jersey from back in the day.
I know the one with the red font.
Yes. I'm reminded of Drazen Petrovic and Derek Coleman era Nets. That was really cool.
Chargers powder blues.
I was just going to say,
best NFL ever.
Natron Means, Junior Seau.
Rest in peace, Thrashers powder blue.
Not bad, not bad.
What about Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, his Red Wings jersey?
It's not bad. Iconic.
Red Wings?
It's iconic.
Really, any of those 90s big logo jerseys from the NBA? Like the Raptors one?
Yeah. The Raptors one was kind of mocked back in the day. Now I think people think it's cool. Quebec Nordiques, classic.
Oh, of course.
Enjoyed that one. I tend to think that the older school ones, like Cavs, Mark Price, Brad Doherty, way cooler in my opinion than the current Cavs. I actually kind of hate the current Cavs one.
I feel like they've aged really well.
Yeah.
Like all those 90s ones.
Yeah.
Like the Hornets.
Blazers. Love the Blazers. Always loved the Blazers. Had a Rasheed Wallace one back in the day. Oh, you know what's a great one? Washington Bullets.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Any Nigerian national team soccer jerseys.
Oh, soccer jerseys,
pretty sick.
Old school Warriors as well, like 70s Warriors was a great one. They've kind of brought it back a little bit.
Rangers hockey with the Statue of Liberty on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could go on and on. A lot of great
Nuggets
ones.
Rainbow ones from the 90s. Love
I mentioned that one. Yeah, Dikembe Mutombo, LaFonso Ellis. LaFonso Ellis, one of my favorite people at ESPN. What a nice guy. You got any in your crick you want to chime in with?
I don't keep as much of a tabs on this, but I would say the Cavs after the era that you were talking about, after the Price Doherty era.
You love that
more
blue
like
and black one, right?
The
Sean
blue
Kemp.
and black and the white and black.
Yeah.
The late 90s, early 2000s, those are some of the best.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of nostalgia. I love when the Memphis Grizzlies break out the Vancouver Grizzlies jersey. That was fun. Last one, Brad. Hi, Ariel. Quick hypothetical question. If you were forced out of your studio and were only able to keep 3 things, any memorabilia, what would you keep and why? Thank you for all the great content you pushed out this week. Must have been a busy few days for you, but we all greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Man, there's some classic ones here that have been with us for quite some time. I mean, the toys have been here a while. I love that Ariel and the Bad Guy one over there. I don't know if you could see it. There's a custom-made Ariel and the Bad Guy one that a fan made. Love the Roxanne Modafferi signed Happy Warrior fan. The Anderson Silva watch box is great. The watch was even cooler, but someone stole it. Thank you very much. The melted crayon nose picture is pretty wild. The Bam Bam Barbarina lunchbox is awesome. The Serrano Taylor program is tremendous.
How big of a box do you think we're giving you?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, grab a couple things.
Put the belt on, right?
The belt, yes, of course, custom belt. The Expos banner, tremendous. We got the Action Bronson record over there. Of course, we got the Forrest banner. We've got the Jessica Aguilar Luchador mask. So, I mean, there's a lot to like here. Oh, the classic Expos cup. The Pettis Wheaties box that is like 10 years old at this point. Sugar Sean O'Malley gloves. I mean, so much stuff.
I think we understand that you're going to take everything.
Okay, yeah. Oh, what about the haggis that Robert Whiteford gave me back in the day? Tremendous stuff. All right, tremendous questions. Thank you very much to everyone.